I just want to get a quick comment from you on this statement that the president provided, his views on his relationship currently with Steve Bannon. How should we interpret this? How are you interpreting this?
Well, we know the difference now between a tweet and an official statement. But I think, I don't focus on palace intrigue. I'm focused on, as you said at the intro of this, those more important issues. We should be focusing on the fact that there's a thawing of relationships between North Korea and South Korea, that there's a protest in Iran like we haven't seen since 2009, and we should be amplifying what the Iranian people are talking about. And we also have to solve a problem for 1 million kids in the United States of America that have only known this country as their home. So those are some of the things that I've been trying to deal with.
Congressman, let's go there then. Let's talk about this, because we obviously have to prevent a government shutdown before January 19th. The Democrats clearly pushing for a solution for the dreamers here, the children of undocumented immigrants. The president himself seemingly tying this to funding for a border wall. I know your views on a Mexican wall here, but is a bipartisan solution here possible, and how can it be achieved? Because I know you've been working on this.
I think there is a bipartisan solution possible, and I think it requires reasonable people to build trust and have conversations about what needs to happen. I think most people want to see reasonable border security. It's 2018, and we don't have operational control of our border, and we should. Now, building a wall is from sea to sea is not the way to do that, but smart border security is possible. And then how do we solve this problem for these 1 million kids? The good thing is nobody's talking about deporting the dreamers. If we did that, that would have a $250 billion impact on our economy in a negative way over the next 10 years. You're talking about taking almost 700,000 people out of the population of workers, and they're contributing into Social Security. So these are going to have economic impacts on our country, and these are a group of people that have already provided, have influenced our culture, our history, and our economy. So let's solve this sooner rather than later.
You also mentioned the situation in North Korea. Obviously, there's been a lot of focus on the president's tweet with regards his bigger button. I just wondered what you think of that strategy, and whether or not you can credit the president here with a suggestion from the South Koreans that they're now engaged in talks with the North.
Well, we also forget that the U.S. is in talks with North Korea. Secretary Tillerson has mentioned that. A year ago, people thought that was unheard of. The fact that the North Koreans picked up their special phone with the South Koreans and had a call yesterday, it's first time in 2 years that has happened. And it seems to be an agreement for the North Koreans to participate in the Olympics in South Korea. As long as people are talking, you're not shooting. And that's why this kind of does this lead to a détente? I hope so, because I think we can still solve this problem diplomatically without getting into a shooting war.
Do you think that's as a result, though, of the president's stance here, or do you think this is to spite him in a sense, that he's actually pushing the North Koreans closer to the South Koreans here?
As we've talked before, I spent 9.5 years as an undercover officer in the CIA. I was the guy in the back alleys at 4 o'clock in the morning. And one of the things I learned when I was in the CIA is to be nice with nice guys and tough with tough guys. How much some of the rhetoric on social media has moved to these conversations, or has it been the fact that we've been engaging with the Chinese on tightening sanctions around North Korea, the fact that we're calling out people for breaking sanctions. I don't think you can focus on just one element, but there's a lot of efforts going on in order to bring North Korea to the negotiating table and to not have them pursue weapons of mass destruction.
Congressman, it's a great point to make, actually, and I want to just go back to what you said at the beginning when I asked you about a statement versus a tweet from the president. You said we've learned the difference between a statement from the president and a tweet. What have we learned?
Well, look, I think when it comes to Iran protests, I think this is a big deal. I've been frustrated that some folks around the world are amplifying the message of the Iranian government, not the Iranian people. The only way that we're going to prevent the Iranians from having a nuclear weapon and using it against our allies like Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan is to change a government. And the only people that can change a government are the people. And we should be doing everything to amplify their message. And I think I wish more more of our friends across the Atlantic in Germany, France, and the UK would follow the president's lead and talk about the support to the Iranian people.
Congressman, I understand what you're saying, but doesn't that also play into the hands of the hardliners within Iran that say these protests are being driven by external forces?
They're going to say that regardless of what the American president says. You know, our audience is not the Iranian government. Our audience is the Iranian people. And so, of course, the President Rouhani, the Supreme Leader, are going to say these are external forces that are causing this to happen. That's a classic playbook. They did that in 2009. They've done that, you know, in the history since the constitutional revolution back in 1906 in Iran. So they're expected to do that, but that shouldn't change the fact that we are supporting the Iranian people and that they have friends. And when you have a government trying to stop how they communicate, if we can amplify that message and promote and broadcast things into Iran that Iranians can't broadcast themselves, then that's a success.